Apple had a huge announcement this week. Apple has entered the chat. They announced Apple Intelligence, get it, AI, and they have included a ChatGPT integration from OpenAI. This was really, I think, impressive in many ways because people thought Apple was far behind. It was a banger of a demo, a lot of un-Apple-like future-looking demos. So none of these demos that we're going to show are coming to your phone this week. They were really, I think, playing catch-up with Microsoft, and it worked. Stock is up 10%. They added about $300 billion in market cap. Now the top three market cap companies are all driven specifically by the perception that AI is going to be the next technological wave. Microsoft, Apple, and NVIDIA all cruising around about $3.2 trillion. And this top three keeps flipping back and forth. Apple had passed Microsoft in market cap. Here's the features. I'll just give you a quick overview of what we're seeing. It's added Grammarly-like features. Great product, Grammarly. I'm not an investor, but they added the ability to proof, get grammar help. AI will transcribe and summarize phone calls with permission, obviously double opt-in. It will prioritize notifications in iMessage and email that are super important. You can do smart replies. And a company we're an investor in, Superhuman, already does this kind of stuff. And they're bringing AI to Siri. And this is going to be the big win in my mind. You're going to be able to say things like you want to order something in DoorDash or Uber Eats or Instacart. And the AI Siri will be able to dip down into apps. They're building a whole app AI interface, much like the Rabbit device CEO talked about doing. And I think this means that Apple is going to win the AI consumer. There is a deal with ChatGPT that I'll get your feedback on, gentlemen, in a moment. According to sources, Apple is not paying OpenAI. It's a non-exclusive deal. ChatGPT can be swapped out. Apple is also talking to Google about a similar deal. Obviously, it doesn't take a genius to predict that Apple is going to auction off the LLM integration, I think, to the highest bidder. They did that with the search deal. Google pays Apple $20 billion to be the default search engine. That's about 5% of Apple's annual revenue, if you didn't know. And it's all profit, right? So this is a huge profit moment. I'm going to pause there for a second before I get into more of this and just get your general reaction, Chamath.
I think you nailed it right at the beginning. The thing that I was struck by the most in this is we went from a phase where in the Steve Jobs era, these events were because you were about to unveil a product that was done and shipping as of that day. And then at some point we transitioned to they are talking about products that they intend to release within a year. Now we've shifted to the part where they're talking about software integrations from a third party that will happen in a year. So if you just look at it sequentially, it's a little disappointing in that sense because for a company this big, it's really not much of anything. You can't really touch it and feel it. And it's going to take a year before we really know what the totality of all of this is. Meanwhile, the economics of the ChatGPT deal were leaked and there's no money on either side. So I don't know, it's a little bit of like, it's really not much of anything, to be honest, because there's nothing we can actually play with and experience.
Friedberg, your thoughts on the vision here at least? And to Chamath's point, Apple used to release dope stuff, fully baked, ready to go. And now we are increasingly see them talking about what's coming next year or at some point. Do you think Apple's going to win the consumer? Do you think Apple's falling behind? Should they have built their own LLM by this point?
I'm not sure. I think what they have shown is more of a glimpse into the future of hardware, where for the last 2 decades or so, hardware has mostly been a portal to access the internet and use the internet through apps or through the browser. And hardware has done a good job of enabling that. But I think we're now going to see a much more tighter coupling where the hardware becomes more valuable and it's less of this kind of funnel for apps to flow through and data to flow through, but the hardware actually becomes the value creator. And you see a much more tighter integration in the hardware OS and the AI or the software that enables you to do lots of things. You're no longer just going to use the hardware to access an app to do something. So a lot of the companies that are app developers are likely going to end up becoming services developers that enable that hardware AI to do something for you. And this coupling between hardware and software, because of the way AI works, is I think becoming more apparent, not just in consumer devices, but we see it in the data center and in the enterprise stack as well. We've seen that obviously there's this tight integration between the chip and the software stack that Grok built. There's a tight integration between Google's TPU stack and then the ML instances and the tools that you can use in Google Cloud that are optimized for use on that TPU hardware. NVIDIA's got a big effort, obviously, in continuing to build out their software stack that sits on top of their hardware and works in a more coupled way. And then Google has this ability to kind of realize, I think, a similar outcome with Pixel phones, which is a pretty sizable opportunity for them. And then all of the hardware manufacturers can probably grab more value now as they build their own AI into their OS. And you start to see more of this value realized by the hardware companies. So I think that there's this really interesting shift where we've all thought about hardware as being this like commodity where there's some degree of like improvement or innovation made over time. But now it seems like a lot of value might actually get captured by hardware companies in all points in the value stack. So it's an interesting moment. And I think that this just shines a light on that trend that I think is going to play out over the next couple of years.
It's clear, Sacks, that right now, to enable these features, you're going to have a pretty solid device. They announced here at the keynote at WWDC that you need to have an M1 chip or better, iPhone 15 or better. So, and having all this local data is a huge advantage for Apple. They've got your messages, your phone, your calendar, your photos, your app behavior, the data inside of your wallet. All of this gives them a huge, huge advantage. So I guess the question is, do you think this renews the Apple franchise and people start upgrading their phones again to get all these new features, David Sacks?
Well, the market definitely thinks so because Apple was up big on this news. And even if it was largely vaporware at this point, the market definitely liked where they were going. And frankly, Apple did exactly what I said they should do last week, which was to reinvent Siri as an LLM with the capability to reach into apps as an agent and take actions on the user's behalf. That's what they effectively announced. However, Apple took a shortcut to get here. They partnered with OpenAI. And this is something that I don't think they've ever really done before at the operating system level. Apple is famous for being vertically integrated, for being a walled garden, for being end-to-end. They control everything from the chips to the hardware to the operating system, and they don't let anybody else in until you're at the App Store layer. This is allowing somebody in beneath the level of the App Store. This is allowing someone, OpenAI, to get access to your data and to control your apps at the operating system level. And I think, Elon pointed out, wait a second, what are the privacy implications here? And I think there are major privacy implications. There's simply no way that you're going to allow an AI on your phone to take all these actions on your behalf without giving that model substantial amounts of user data. And that is a huge change for Apple. Remember, Apple in the past has been the advocate for consumer privacy. There's a whole issue of the San Bernardino terrorist where the FBI went to Apple and said, we want you to give us backdoor access to their phone. And Apple refused to do it and went to court to defend user privacy. And furthermore, one of Apple's defenses to the arguments, the antitrust arguments for allowing sideloading and allowing other apps to get access to parts of the operating system is they've always said, we can't do this because it would jeopardize user privacy and user security. Well, here they are opening themselves up to OpenAI in a very deep and fundamental way in order to accelerate the development of these features. In other words, they took the shortcut. They could have developed the LLM themselves. They could have developed the AI themselves, but they chose not to do that. And I think this is going to open Pandora's box for Apple because, again, they've proven that they can open up the operating system to a third party now. And who knows what the privacy implications of this are going to be.
It turns out Apple has addressed this head on. They hear the concerns. And much like when you share a photo or you share your location, it's going to ask you over and over again, do you want to let this app do this? So they're aware that this is an issue. They brought up privacy every single time, but people don't trust OpenAI and they do trust Apple. So this is strange bedfellows to be sure. Chamath, your thoughts?
I think that Apple really cares about privacy when they're trying to hurt a company they don't like, i.e. Meta. And they're willing to figure out a way to work around it when it's a company that they clearly support, OpenAI.
Yeah. Well, when you're behind, you behave differently than when you're ahead and you have your monopoly.